Okay, so this is NF2, which is actually pronounced Neurofibromatosis type 2. Well, technically it's totally NF1 and 2. And wait for it. This is Friedrich von Recklinghausen, who actually found NF2. NF2 is a type of disease on like the brain, and his name is von Recklinghausen, which is a long name. But he lived in Würzburg, Germany, which I find very fun to say, and he often studied at his school lab starting, and he would get there like at dawn or before dawn, and he would study there all day until late at night. And he discovered NF1, which later led us to find NF2, because there are two completely different types, which you'll learn about later. His name is actually pronounced with like this kind of like throat sound. I think I can do it. It's like von Recklinghausen. My mom can do it really well. He studied under somebody named Rudolf Virchow, and he was a hard and very dedicated worker. He was always ahead of the class. He would kind of be the person that if the teacher didn't know something, they'd call on him and ask him to teach it. And he had a huge gift for studying the anatomy in the brain, because he just was born with just this mega skill for learning, and he was really good at that. He understood it amazingly. He went on educational trips to Vienna, Rome, and Paris. So all of that just so he could learn stuff from different people. And he was born in 1833 and died in 1910. Now this is some NF fun facts on the basic NF1 and NF2. NF can affect the brain, spinal cord, nerves, skin, and a whole bunch of other systems that I'm not going to name. Most kids are diagnosed between ages 3 through 16, and as the tumors grow, they can press, well, because there are tumors that are like little blobs almost. That's just about how I can explain it. And they press on vital nerves, oftentimes making the patient blind, deaf, or permanently disabled in a bunch of these crazy ways. And technically, I'm half mutant because I actually have NF2, and technically I could be half mutant because half of NF tumors are actually genetic code mutations. The effects of NF can literally vary from living your whole life having no idea, because like for me, they didn't find out until just a few years ago, but they said I probably had it since I was 5, which is kind of amazing because no side effects. Or it can literally be you grow up and just as you're reaching 5 or 6 years old, you start to have problems. So NF1, that is the first type of NF, and it is also called von Recklinghausen's disease because it's the one that he found. It's transmitted on chromosome 17, which none of you probably know what chromosome is. So it's kind of something in the DNA. It's like you've seen the pictures of like DNA that goes like this and those straight lines across. Chromosome is just like a little strip of that. And NF1 is caused by the mutation or deletion, which means them just being gone from the NF1 gene. It occurs generally late childhood, so some of you 4th graders, 4th, 5th, maybe a couple of 6th graders would probably, if you had it, which chances are you don't because it's really rare, then you would have found out by now. It occurs in 1 in every 3,000 people, so very rare. And the most common side effect of NF1 is actually spots on the skin that look kind of like slightly large freckles, and they're called cafe au lait spots. And there are actually tumors sometimes that can appear along the skin, and they'll just be little lumps, and it's creepy if you ask me. And they are actually called neurofibromas, which is really kind of weird, and they appear on the skin a lot. This is NF2, which is the thing that I got diagnosed with. It is actually transmitted on chromosome 22, and it is also caused by mutation or deletion of the NF2 gene. It occurs late teens to early 20s, So that's why it's kind of weird that I got it so slightly young. It occurs to 1 in every 25,000. That's a whole lot more than NF1, and that would be 2 to 3 people in all of Everett, which I find amazing. It is usually characterized by tumors on the hearing and facial nerve, so the things that kind of control the hearing and the facial nerve, and they're usually on both sides, not just one, and then usually you'll find them down the spine. And patients that are diagnosed with NF2 generally end up going deaf, though that can be decided. Well, it doesn't always happen. There are surgeries. There are 3 types of surgeries. There are 3 different approaches. I have had 2 of them. There is the translabyrinth approach, which I did not have. That's the one I didn't have. And it sacrifices the hearing, but it's a lot easier. The doctors were literally telling us, you gotta do this, you gotta do this, you gotta do this one, but it sacrifices the hearing, so that it would mean that if I had it on my left side, which is what I had the other 2 on, that I would never be able to hear it on that side again. So my mom was like, nuh-uh. Then there's the middle fossa approach. That's was my first one, and it is much harder, but it has a chance to save the hearing, which is why we did that. Now, the reason we had the second one, the second brain surgery for me, because I did all that stuff last year, because the first one, they got out 90% of the tumor. So there was still just a little bit left, so they went in from the retrosigmoid approach. And don't ask me why they have these crazy long names, because whoever invented this should have made shorter names. And that one I also did, and the hearing can be saved, but if it's a giant tumor, then sometimes they have to sacrifice the hearing. And the cut is made, so if I have this ear right there, the cut is made like right there. We really need to coordinate the board. Yes, it worked. Now we come to a blank slide. Now, I actually have a sheet for this, but you might be wondering why there's a blank slide here. That is because this blank slide doesn't have a story on it. Now, that story is my story. Me and my family, we're Christians. That means that we believe in God, and some of you know what that is, some of you don't. But for those of you who might not have that religious faith that me and my family do, think about this. The Wright brothers, they were told that if God wanted man to fly, he would have given us wings. But they did some impossible stuff. They went up and they said, we're gonna do this, like it or not. They created the airplane, and now all of you have heard airplanes soaring through the sky. And some people wonder how it works. Some people know that the Wright brothers did that. Now, another thing, Thomas Edison failed over 1,000 times before he replaced the everyday candle and lamp with a light. And there's like a whole bunch of lights in our school. So, I mean, can any of you imagine a whole world where a bunch of us students would have candles on our desks? That would not be fun. And there would be a whole lot more fires in schools. So, really, I think that by the time that we're all older, that I'm not going to have to deal with all this NF stuff, NF2, because they're going to make a cure for it. And hopefully soon, because there is literally an entire clinic developed for NF2 and a whole different one for NF1. So, honestly, I'm not even worried about this, because they always say that if you have NF1 or NF2, that if I had 2 kids, one of them would have NF2 or NF1. So, but I don't think that's going to happen, because the people, Thomas Edison, the Wright brothers, so many people have proven the impossible possible. So if somebody ever says, that's never going to work, it's never going to happen, blah, 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 you just say, oh, baloney. And you can just think about the blank slide. Because like the blank slide, our stories are being written. Now we have a bibliography. So I found whonamedit.com, which is a silly name if you ask me, Wikipedia, kidshealth.org, geneticslabonca.net, Mayfield Clinic, Minneapolis Clinic of Neurology, and wait for it, the end.